Preface. Since neo-scholastic metaphysics has come to separate ontology from natural theology, and so responds less to the traditional Aristoteleo-scholastic concept, authors have not seldom obtained deficient or less acceptable solutions. Therefore, I have tried to reduce summarily to one whole all the things that belong essentially to first philosophy, and that cannot, without danger of grave loss, be separated. For the contribution that the Golden Age of scholastics contributed to the development of metaphysics should be considered a common patrimony, merits to be preserved by all. The noted professor, Father Bonifacius Bormann, has recently summoned back to the scales the efforts of neo-scholastics, who in separating diverse parts of special metaphysics from each other and from ontology, have so far progressed that the essential nexus of natural theology with ontology is no longer apparent. For these sorts of efforts have developed the theory of Christian Wolff about the radical separation of ontology, the science of being qua being, from natural theology, the science of God, and the other parts of special metaphysics. Further, the same Father Bonifacius has given a clear exposition of the principles and methods that serve to build a genuine metaphysics on the foundation of a synthesis of the scholastics. Lastly, Father Philotheus Boner, of pious memory, has found this theory of perennial metaphysics enumerated in the philosophical theological synthesis that at the beginning of the Franciscan school is contained in that excellent work, the Summa of Brother Alexander of Hales. In the dissertation that I myself more recently completed on the Transcendentals according to the mind of John Donne's Scotist, I did not omit to point out clearly how powerful a possibility the theory of the subtle doctor provides for integrating into a complete system the heterogeneous elements that are found in the metaphysics of Aristotle. As is well known, according to Aristotle, first philosophy, or divine science, treats three things: of causes or principles, of God and the intelligences, and of being and its properties. As St. Albert the Great notes, the philosophers were already in dispute about the first subject of metaphysics, but while some, following Plato, the Neoplatonists, place the first subject in causes, others of a greater moment are followers of Avicenna and Averroes. And while Averroes contended that God was the first subject of metaphysics, even though the existence of God could be proved only by physical arguments, Avicenna and after him the scholastics commonly, in order to avoid Averroes' equivocation, take being and its properties to be the first subject. Quote, "Therefore, along with all the peripatetics who state the truth," says Albert, "it seems that one should state that the subject is being insofar as it is being, and the things that follow on being insofar as it is being its properties, as are cause merely substantive and accident, the separate and not separate, potency and act, and the like." St. Thomas Aquinas agrees with the same opinion, for he says, quote, "Although this science considers the three aforesaid things, yet it does not consider each of them as the subject, but only being itself, for this is the same subject in the science whose causes and features we seek for." Unquote. But according to this common doctrine, although common being is the subject of first philosophy, the existence of God as he is the cause of all things is proved in the science. Hence, the knowledge of God is, as it were, quote, "the end which the consideration attains," St. Thomas, because, quote, "metaphysics is finally the highest of causes, as whose knowledge metaphysical science ends," Scotus. Now, in our time, not a few neo-scholastic philosophers, panicked by exaggerated critique from the existentialist movement in Germany, France, and Italy, abandon or neglect the idea of a metaphysical science as understood by the scholastics. Still, one has to say that this old ideal is more pleasing to the Anglo-American mentality than is modern existentialism, which saps the Cartesianism and modernist muddliness. It seems healthier to me, therefore, to return above all to the mind of the scholastics, so that the foundation of the whole of metaphysics may be solidly laid down. The rest, especially about the idea and division of this dissertation, will be stated in the introduction. I would like to point out that this work I do not plan to offer a solution to all and each of the questions about the nature and extent of metaphysics that are now disputed. However, I do offer the simple effort to consider metaphysics more correctly. For this reason, we do earnestly insist that metaphysics has a rational character to the extent it is a body of determined or proved conclusions. Finally, according to the directive norms of Pope Pius XII, which says that, quote, it is integral to each professor, within assigned limits, which should not be transgressed, to adhere to some school that has attained the right of domicile in the Church on the basis of the law, that it is thoroughly distinguished truths which are to be held by all those that are the features and elements of a particular school, and that it is these distinctions in its teachings as benefits a judicious master, unquote. In accord with these words, we have tried to isolate the common doctrine of true traditional metaphysics, while, on the other hand, carefully avoiding the secondary and discrepant character of each particular school, and we have relegated matters of controversy to a lower place. Again, for the sake of clarity, we have set additional questions in a long bibliography aside, which can cause confusion. Further, we have not referred to many modern treatises, because they do not properly belong to our study, which is necessarily restricted to the elementary metaphysics, although they are good and useful, as for example the Austrian philosophy of values, the philosophy of the beautiful, etc. For we did not wish to exceed the limits of a summary manual that will be expanded at the pleasure of the professor. Select notes are at the foot of the page for two reasons. One, books or articles illustrating the questions are referred to before each other's. Two, works published in English are preferable to other equal ones. Finally, I especially give thanks and retain gratitude for the advice they gave me to Father Menges, Mohan, Baltaverna, Dom, and Butiret.